Shalom, brothers and sisters. I want to continue where I left off at before with the title of this show, which is called For the Last Damn Time, Cornelius was an Israelite, because there still seems to be some problems going on with identifying who's who in the scriptures. For so long now, before this understanding started to be spread amongst the four corners of the earth, our people have always read the scriptures, all right? And I remember that as a little boy growing up, my grandmother, my grandfather always reading the scriptures. But what happened now is that they were never able to bring any clarity in the scriptures identifying who's who in the Bible. It was never taught to me while growing up in the Christian church that we are the people that the Bible is talking about. And they never told us that we are the Hebrew Israelites. They never told us that we were the people that was called out of Egypt and brought to Mount Sinai and made a covenant with the Messiah. That was never explained to us. So what we have to do now is identify these characters in the scriptures so that we can understand, okay, that Paul, Peter, and James is not coming with another doctrine. They're still teaching the reunification of both northern and southern kingdom. That is very important for us to understand. And what I'm going to do now is go back to Acts the 10th chapter. I'm going to read the 28th verse because this seems to be a stumbling block for a lot of brothers, especially on Acts 10:28, because they're not able to pick out all of this meat that's in verse 28. But this can only come about when we understand the history. All right, so what I'm going to do without further ado is I'm going to read Acts 10:28. And hopefully this will put the nail in the coffin and helping us to understand that Cornelius was an Israelite. And when I say that Cornelius was an Israelite for the last damn time, I'm not angry or upset or anything like that. You know, I just said, listen, you know what? Let me go ahead and try to put the nail in the coffin and help us to understand that Cornelius was an Israelite. That's all, okay? So don't take the title offensive, all right? That's not what I'm trying to do here. Acts 10:28. Let's go into it. And he said unto them, you know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one of another nation. But the Messiah hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. The 29th verse. Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for. I asked therefore for what intent you have sent for me. So what we have to understand, why is Peter saying this? Why is it being said that it is an unlawful thing for a Jew, somebody of northern kingdom, all right, to dwell or come amongst somebody from another nation? Now what Peter is talking about here now is the rift between northern and southern kingdom. And what Peter is coming to understand here now, because he didn't understand the dream at first, he's coming to the understanding that the Messiah cleansed. Because you can no longer call it common now. You can no longer call northern kingdom common. Because there was a rift, a big strife that was going on between northern and southern kingdom. And I'm going to bring that out in John the 4th chapter. John 4. And I'm going to read like the 17th verse. I'm going to start there. Because it's very important that we understand what was going on. This problem started because there's two royal figures that's being dealt with here. Remember, Judah got the birthright. Judah got rulership. Make sure I do this correctly now. Judah got the rulership. Ephraim got the firstborn blessing. So you have two royal figures living in the same house. All right. Again, Judah got the rulership. Ephraim got the birthright. There's two royal figures living in the household, and that caused beef and it caused strife. Remember how, okay, Ephraim or Joseph was sold into captivity. Because we see now that the brothers hated from the very beginning in the book of Genesis, they hated Joseph. And Joseph represents Ephraim and Manasseh because remember, okay, Ephraim and Manasseh are sons of Joseph. So we see the hatred starting way back in Genesis. All right? They differed in philosophy, ideology, and religion. They differed. There were two separate individuals, two separate nations. It's important that we understand that. All right? Now let me go to John, the 4th chapter, and I'm going to read the 16th verse. Okay, so it's St. John 4:16. The Messiah said unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. The woman was correct. The woman doesn't have a husband because this woman is representing Northern Kingdom. The reason why this woman didn't have a husband, because remember the scripture. Jeremiah 3:8 tells us that the Messiah gave Northern Kingdom a bill of divorce. She was exiled out into the nations. The Messiah was no longer calling Northern Kingdom, all right, his bride. He had given her a bill of divorce. So the woman spoke correctly if we understand the scriptures that the Messiah is saying, listen, you said correctly that you don't have a husband. Because remember, I gave you a bill of divorce. It's important that we understand the scriptures here. The Messiah said unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. The Messiah said unto her, Thou hast well said. Why did the Messiah say that? Why did he say that? The woman spoke correctly. The woman didn't have a husband because the Messiah gave the woman a bill of divorce. I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands. So why is the Messiah saying thou hast had 5 husbands? The 5 husbands is representing idolatry. Northern Kingdom had been involved in so much idolatry. 5 husbands is representing idolatry. And it's going on to say now in verse 18, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. Why is the Messiah saying that? Because the rightful and true husband of Northern Kingdom is the Messiah. And the only one that can redeem Northern Kingdom back to him is the rightful and true husband, if you understand Romans the 7th chapter correctly. All right? So the true husband is the Messiah, and the Messiah died for both Northern and Southern Kingdom. And that says thou truly. The woman said unto him, the Messiah, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet, and the Messiah is a prophet, and so much more. He is the redeemer of both houses, Northern and Southern Kingdom. This is a literal event that's going on in verse 4 in John, but it has a deeper meaning. That deeper meaning is the side level. There's the Peshat level, and then there's the side level. The side level to understanding the scriptures is finding the deeper meaning in the understanding of these scriptures here. That's the reason why a lot of brothers are having problems with understanding that Cornelius was an Israelite, because they're looking at it now from the Peshat level. The Peshat level is the basic understanding of it, which is fine. But what we have to do now is take it a step deeper and understand what is this whole thing talking about. Okay? Now I'm going to go, the 20th verse. We're talking about, again, the rift or the beef between both Northern and Southern Kingdom. Why Peter is saying, listen, this is an unlawful thing. You know how it's an unlawful thing for one that is a Jew, which is Southern Kingdom, to dwell or be amongst someone from another nation, and that another nation is referring to Northern Kingdom. Our fathers worship in this mountain. So this woman now, which is Northern Kingdom, the silly dove that's talked about in Hosea, okay, this Northern Kingdom is being compared as a silly dove. And here she is now, Northern Kingdom, being arrogant. Okay, this is an arrogant statement, okay, that is being said in conversation with the Messiah. Listen to it again. Our fathers worship in this mountain. So we see now that there was a beef between Northern and Southern Kingdom on where to worship at. This mountain that we're talking about is Mount Gerizim. Remember the split that happened in 933 BC between Jeroboam and Rehoboam? That's very important for us to understand, because remember, Rehoboam set up places of worship out in Mount Gerizim at Bethel and at Dan. Because remember, Jeroboam said, listen, you know what? If the brothers in Northern Kingdom was to go down to Jerusalem, which is the place where the Messiah placed his name, then I will lose my control of Northern Kingdom. Because remember the 12 pieces? I went into that whole thing there, and where Jeroboam got a couple of pieces and Rehoboam got a couple of pieces, because the kingdom was split in two. There was a division. There was a hatred between Northern and Southern Kingdom. That's what Acts, the 10th chapter, the 28th, is talking about. It's talking about the envy, the jealousy, the hatred between Northern and Southern Kingdom. Excuse me. our fathers worship in this mountain, and you say the Messiah? So this woman is coming against even the Messiah, northern kingdom. And you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship? Of course, Jerusalem is the place where we ought to worship. And the place is called Mount Moriah. Remember, Jerusalem is the place where the Messiah placed his name. But northern kingdom didn't agree with that. There was beef between northern and southern kingdom upon where to worship at. And we know that 3 times a year, all males are supposed to report to Jerusalem. Passover, Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Those are the 3 times that all males must report to Jerusalem. Okay, there's also called Pentecost. I like to say Feast of Weeks. Now, I understand the whole thing about Penti meaning 50 and everything like that. I understand that, but I like to keep everything in its proper context. I like to say the Feast of Weeks. I understand the count and everything like that, so I don't want nobody to get sidetracked. All right, Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, the same thing. But those are the 3 times where all males are supposed to report to Jerusalem. I'm going to jump down now to verse 25, 4:25. The woman said it to him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called the Messiah, Hamashiach Yahushai. When he is come, he will tell us all things, because there's a beef going on between northern and southern kingdom. They differed in religion, ideology, even in the way that they written things, they wrote things, the alphabets. All right, there was a difference between northern and southern kingdom. It's very important that we understand this, because this will help us to understand what was going on in Romans, the 10th chapter and the 28th verse. It is also very important for us to understand that during the time of the Messiah's ministry, there were 2 schools that was prevalent in that time. It was the school of Shammai and it was the school of Hillel. And Paul studied under the feet of Gamaliel, which is Hillel. But there was also a school called Shammai, and the school of Shammai taught that, listen, you know what? Northern kingdom would not return. I don't care what you do, there will always be a rift between northern and southern kingdom. All right, so what you need to do now to get further understanding of what's going on here is to understand that there were 2 schools that was being ran during the time of the Messiah's ministry, and that school was called the school of Hillel and the school of Shammai. It's very, very important that we understand what was going on in Jerusalem at that time. There's a lot of history and there's a lot of key things that's happening between the lines here. This is talking about the reunification of both northern and southern kingdom. I'm going to finish this thing up here. The Messiah said unto her, this is 4:26, the Messiah in the book of John, the Messiah said unto her, I that speak unto thee and he. So the Messiah is telling this woman that I am the Messiah. Remember, this woman who's representing northern kingdom, they knew that the Messiah was coming because they also had the Torah. And this woman is making acknowledgement that the Messiah was coming, and the Messiah is confirming with this woman that I am the one that was talked about to come in the Old Testament. All right? Watch this. And upon this came his disciples and marveled. Why were they marveled? And marveled that he talked with the woman. Why was the disciples marveling that the Messiah was talking to this woman? Yet no man said, what seekest thou, or what talkest thou with her? Why? Because there was a rift. There was a disagreement between northern and southern kingdom. And the disciples marveled that the Messiah talked to her. Why? All right? Ask the question why. Because it's going to help us to understand what's going on again in Acts the 10th chapter, the 28th verse. Because northern kingdom and southern kingdom didn't get along. So when the disciples saw the Messiah talking to her, they're like, wow, what's going on? We don't have no dealings with northern kingdom. So why is the Messiah talking to her? The Messiah came to cleanse both houses, both northern and southern kingdom, and the Messiah was about reunifying and breaking down this rift between northern and southern kingdom, where Judah is not going to vex Ephraim and Ephraim is not going to vex Judah. With that, I say shalom, brothers and sisters.